at least a couple. And Nick Sirianni has the best roster in football. Now that Detroit doesn't have Hutchinson and are banged up on the back end, the Eagles have the best roster in football. I don't even think anybody argues about that. So, and now Jaylen Hurts, the good news, he's going to play. He practiced. He's going to play. And can they keep playing as well as they did late in the regular season against weaker teams? Now it's the Packers at home. Here's Nick Sirianni.
Same process, same everything. Don't let everyone is going to tell you how much more, how much bigger this atmosphere is and how much bigger this is. It's really, don't do anything different than what you've been doing. Like when the stakes get higher, when the game gets bigger, right, you need to lock down and do the tough detail together.
I agree with him there. So yesterday, this week, Antonio Pierce was fired as the Raiders head coach. I wouldn't have done that.
All right. Well, that was a nice smooth transition. Yeah. Listen, it's a fascinating question. Who's under more pressure? Sirianni or McDermott? They're both under tremendous amount of pressure, honestly. And I really do think Sirianni is under a massive amount of pressure here. He just is, and he knows it. There'll be people who will say, "Oh, he's not under pressure. What the heck? He's this great." He knows it. You can see it in his behavior, in the answers he gives, and all of that. Like, we saw that throughout this season. He's not dumb. He knows. He understands what the expectations are. He's the one that's having the conversations with Lurie and Howie Roseman, and so he knows. And this roster is stacked. This roster is elite. This roster is high level. And the coordinators have proven Kellen Moore and Fangio to be absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, doing their job. So it can't be like, we need a different coordinator. Last year we had some injuries and defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator. That's not this year. That's not this season. You have A.J. Brown, Devontae, Saquon Barkley, Jaylen Hurts. You got beasts on defense. Whether established names or rookies who are balling out. You got an awesome O-line, an awesome D-line. Like, you are there. And the Detroit Lions aren't 100% healthy. If the Detroit Lions were fully healthy, if you're having an honest conversation about this and you saw the Eagles lose to the Lions, you'd have to be like, okay, you know what? The Lions are an awesome team. And you could admit that. You could admit that and be like, I know this team, the Eagles were stacked and all this, and it was their year, but you know what? The Lions it was also really that great too. And so it really did just come down to who had the ball at the end of the game. And you could be okay with that. But the Lions aren't healthy. So you can't lose to the Packers. You can't lose to the Buccaneers. You can't lose to the Commanders. You can't lose to the Vikings. You can't lose to the Rams. You can't lose to the Lions. You're supposed to be better than the Buffalo Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs. So if you don't win, it's like they got to blame someone. They got to blame someone. And it will be, fair or unfair, Nick Sirianni. That's just what it gets boiled down to. You get the benefit of the doubt if your team isn't stacked. You get the benefit of the doubt if you dealt with injuries. You get the benefit of the doubt if you had a really bad coordinator even. Although sometimes that falls on the coach's shoulders as well. But when you have this team, these expectations, you went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. It's like, you got to show that you can do it again. Otherwise, it's goodbye and good luck. That's what they did with Doug Peterson. And again, anyone who doesn't believe that Sirianni is on the hot seat, you're confused. Doug Peterson got fired just a mere few years after winning the Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl. And he actually dealt with the mess. He dealt with a ton of injuries with Carson Wentz. Like, not Carson Wentz individually, although obviously he got injured. But in terms of, like, Carson Wentz that one year was throwing to, like, no one. I think it was the year when he got concussed against the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, he was throwing to no one. Lawn chairs and deck tables, I think, is actually how Colin put it years ago. I mean, like, it was crazy what he had to kind of overcome in that situation. And they're like, nope, goodbye. We don't think you're the man for the job. So yeah, there's a lot at stake here for the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a lot. I always try to think, who would it be okay to lose to? Because I think it's a fascinating question to ask. You know, the Bills. Would it be okay for them to lose to any other team but the Chiefs? Same thing with the Ravens. Would it be okay for them to lose to any other team but the Chiefs? It feels like no. The Eagles are in a situation where we've seen what they were capable of doing. We've seen how they went toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They had that game. They could have won that game. They outplayed the Kansas City Chiefs for the bulk of that game. Jaylen Hurts balled out and outplayed Patrick Mahomes in that game. And that's the dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Kansas City Chiefs now have won multiple Super Bowls since the start of that game, including, obviously, that game with the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles haven't. So we know what they're capable of doing. And their sheer inability to get back there and win, it would fall on coaching. Because we know we can look at the Kansas City Chiefs and say the reason why they reliably are as great as they are is obviously because of Patrick Mahomes, the team, but also the coaching. It's everything. It's everything. So there's a lot of pressure on Sirianni and Jaylen Hurts for that matter, which I've talked about before as well. Jaylen Hurts has to ball. He has to prove that he elevates and steps up in the playoffs. He's done it. He did it in the Super Bowl, as I just said, at the highest level, the most important game in all of NFL and in NFL history. He showed that he could do that. But the one thing that he hasn't shown yet, by no real fault of his own, just because of time, that he can keep doing it. That, you know, because we know, Patrick Mahomes, we know he's going to step up in the playoffs. Oh, Josh Allen, we know he's going to step up in the playoffs. Tom Brady, we know he stepped up in the playoffs. Like, you know that. But you have to earn that. That takes time. It's not just one playoff run. It's not just a couple games. So that's the next thing for Jaylen Hurts to let everyone know. Dude, in the playoffs, man, I ball. I am here. I am here. I am him. There's a lot of pressure for that, because if he goes up against the Packers, or let's say they beat the Packers, now they play, who knows who, the Bucks, the Rams, whatever, and he doesn't play well, that will be on him. He's supposed to be the top quarterback. He's supposed to be that dude. He was the MVP candidate. Should have won the MVP that year. He balled out in the Super Bowl. Like, he needs to continue to show, yeah, man, that's what I do. Don't doubt that. Don't question me. It's up to him to show that to all of us. So yeah, Sirianni and Jaylen Hurts, they are theoretically, again, wrong or right, they are theoretically the two most doubted aspects of this Philadelphia Eagles team. People do not doubt Fangio as a defensive coordinator. They just don't. They love him. He is highly respected in the NFL. Highly respected. If he was let go by the Eagles, he would get a job in a snap. Not so sure Sirianni would get hired. Jaylen Hurts, they know Saquon Barkley. They know AJ, Devontae. Like, there's never any concerns about Saquon. Dallas, Devontae, Lane Johnson, AJ. Like, no one questions that. They just don't. But they question Jaylen Hurts. Again, right or wrong. I'm talking about just perception. I'm not even talking about my personal opinions. I'm just talking about the perception. That's why all of the videos, all the takes throughout the season are constantly like, is Jaylen Hurts a good passer? Is Jaylen Hurts the guy for the Eagles? Did the offense look better with Kenny Pickett and McKee? Should Sirianni be fired? If Jaylen Hurts doesn't have a good year this year, will the Eagles move on from him? Will Sirianni make it to Thanksgiving? No one's saying that about A.J. Brown, Devontae. No one's saying that. Throughout this season, nobody was saying, oh, Fangio, he's a mess. So that's where the pressure is at. I hope they handle it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Sirianni being under the most pressure? And I guess, we'll throw in Jaylen Hurts, as that's where this conversation took us as well. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.